most important things for us to recognize is the difference between culture and religion. Confusing the two can lead us to misunderstanding one or the other or both. Often, what happens is that someone wishes to follow Islam, but what happens next? They end up following culture, which is what they see others acting upon in the community, rather than what Islam itself actually says. Okay, so this is totally opening a can of worms. Yeah, but I'm gonna do my best to explain it real quick. Okay, so let's first define the terms. Culture can be defined as the ideas, customs, and social behavior of a particular people or society. And Islam, as a religion, let's define it as a complete way of life and a system for governing individual and societal affairs as per the divine principles and rules set by the one God through his messenger, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him and his. You might want to rewind and hear that definition again. The key points to remember here are that culture is simply the customs and social behavior of a particular people or society, whereas Islam, religion, deen, is a complete systematic set of principles of God. Culture is something that people are inherently raised with according to the environment and the society they're nurtured by. But religion, on the other hand, is a divine set of principles that God has sent for all of humanity, regardless of their culture, in order to bring them out of the darkness and into the light. An example would be how people greet one another. Some may say hello. In some cultures, some people shake hands. Maybe in some cultures, people hug or kiss. Islam is not against these cultural forms of greeting per se, as long as they don't contradict the principles of Islam. For example, shaking hands and hugging and kissing is fine as a greeting. Totally cool, as long as it's not done between men and women. Get it? Additionally, Islam has recommended to greet one another with salam. Salamun alaikum. Alaikum assalam. Or peace. So wherever you go in the Muslim world, you'll see that various people from Turkey to Morocco to Pakistan will have their own cultural manners and expectations, and Islam will play a role in giving that culture an appropriate direction. Another fantastic example would be marriage and wedding ceremonies, right? You might attend a Muslim wedding and see all sorts of weird and just wonderful things. In an Indian wedding, you'll notice that the bride will often wear a red dress, lots of jewelry. And the bride and groom's face will be covered by flowers. Yeah, that's Indian culture, not religion, not Islam. It's beautiful though. In a Western wedding, the bride might wear a white dress, the groom a black suit. In some weddings in Romania, it's a practice for the friends and family to kidnap the bride. And the groom must then pay a ransom to get her back. Fun! You might have also heard that in Kenya, the father of the bride will spit on her wedding dress for good luck. I know! And just imagine, it's your daughter's wedding day and you're gifted with a goose or duck. Well, that's the culture norm in some parts of Korea. All of these things might seem bizarre to us. That's because it's not part of our culture. Every region and peoples of Earth have their own respective cultures, and it's important to identify that those are not religion. Islam is not necessarily against any cultural practices as long as those cultural practices do not contradict the laws of Islam. For example, it may be all right for the bride or groom to wear white or red or black or any other color. What Islam commands is that hijab is observed, whatever cultural form that hijab may take. Kidnapping the bride and ransoming her back to the groom might be a tradition for some people. Islam may not be opposed to this practice as long as it doesn't cause complications or offend anybody, and it's just, a bit of fun on the part of the in-laws. and so on and so forth. You can imagine the rest. The main point here is that while Islam is a universal religion which came for all nations and peoples of the world, it's important not to allow cultural practices to take precedence over Islamic principles, and it's even more important not to get confused between the two. In the West, for example, Christmas has become an integral part of the culture. Now, if Islam came to the West, would it eradicate this fundamental cultural practice? Not necessarily, yes. Christmas is a culture riddled with pagan elements, with fictional characters like Santa Claus and elves on the 25th of December. Of course, is not, in fact, the birth date of Jesus. However, instead of wiping away this cultural element, Islam would teach society to take the opportunity to remind ourselves of the great prophet Jesus, his story, his teachings, and his way of life. Islam is not against the cultural practices of any people, but rather against the manifestation of that cultural expression. For example, what do I mean? Islam is against alcohol, drinking, parties where illicit behavior takes place, and against certain forms of worldly music which leads the society astray. So, in a nutshell, culture and the religion are not fundamentally opposed. Culture is good as long as it doesn't contradict the religion, and the religion, in fact, gives a positive direction and boundary for the culture to move in.